So we have lots of urgent and breaking news coming up. Effective immediately, state of emergency alerts and announcements from multiple states, Pennsylvania, Texas, Florida, and governors sounding the alarm in hopes of trying to keep people safe from these dangers that are approaching and hurry up to get them rushed out of harm's way as fast as possible. Developing crisis and emerging conflict in Sudan has begun to threaten critical supplies of key ingredients, similar to the shortages that we've experienced last year after Russia invaded Ukraine. Also known as the breadbasket of Europe, and quite honestly, the world for that matter. The country's main crops include sunflower, corn, soybeans, wheat, and barley. And we're around 32 million hectares of land, which is equivalent to 10,000 square meters each, was typically cultivated each year, with Ukraine and Russia supplying a quarter of the world's wheat and half of its sunflower products. Now, new breaking news developments shine light on the new fears of threats to key ingredient supplies as the crisis and turmoil in Sudan develops. I will share with you all recent updates from the Biden administration and their plans, or better yet, warnings to prepare, and just how much time we have left, as this is a very fluid situation and only likely to get worse in the near future, causing more financial pain and economic stress and monetary burden on all these people who are at the front of the line and seemingly first to be wiped out. And way more than that, so much more. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Oh, and for all my stock market, real estate, cryptocurrency, and commodities market investors, savers, entrepreneurs, business owners, retirement planning, and fixed income preppers, don't wait for the final ruling from the SEC on the XRP court case. The best way to be ready and prepared is to already be ready and prepared so that you don't have to get ready and prepared. Protect your stockpile of your cryptocurrency and keep your keys safe and off the exchange. XRP, Ripple, BTC, Bitcoin, Ethereum. Click the link down below in the description for Ledger Nano X cold storage wallet. Now, I'm stocking up with all I can and moving fast to get out of a vulnerable cash position and into a much stronger asset class or diverse asset classes before it becomes a state of emergency in the markets. Buying gold and silver from Hard Assets Alliance keeps my portfolio diverse and allows me plenty of upside potential to pivot should shit hit the fan. BRICS is buying up all the gold that they can. I want to make sure that I get mine before it's all gone. Again, also follow me on Instagram for more info and a full list of helpful links. You can contact me and share links, images, and videos there too. Just DM me and send me a direct message with what you want to share with the community and everybody watching. Be sure to check out my website at kevin247.news. I want to keep you all in the know and ahead of the curve, so I'm building out a 100% free information, education, news, and planning and preparation network just for you guys. I want to thank you all for your continued support. Please smash the like button for the algorithm. It helps out tremendously, and subscribe to the channel. I love you all so much, and I'm honored that you are very smart, wise, and intelligent and knowledgeable people continuing to let me into your lives each and every day. God bless you all. So first up, bill introduced to let Pennsylvania milk trucks keep driving during state of emergency. Have you heard about this one?
No, I have not.
So Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 2 Republican state senators from rural districts in Pennsylvania have introduced a new bill that would exempt milk haulers from travel bans during states of emergency.
Why not water haulers? Why milk?
The choices, what they choose to spend their time with in legislation, proposing bills, writing bills. But I really kind of wonder where the thought process is, and what sets the urgency?
Well, with that one, let me be I don't know if this is probably the popular opinion actually, but a lot of people are worried about the mRNA being put into cattle, and a lot of them were worried about being put into the beef cattle. But what if it's going into the dairy cattle instead? Therefore, the milk becomes the most important part of all of it, because milk is in milk you drink, it's in cheese, it's in yogurt, ice cream, it's literally in a little bit of absolutely everything. So ensuring that that still gets out ensures that all these other products are still able to be made too.
Well, it's funny you say that, because what you most typically say, and for those who are not aware, this is Squirrel Tribe. She's back there. I don't know if you can see her. But what you typically say is profit over people.
Yep.
And as we go into this, that may be actually what their drive is.
The profit, because again, you use water for everything in life, but milk is more expensive than water, and it's used in so many things, processed foods and whatnot.
Well, it says that the bill would allow people driving milk trucks to get permission from their local governments to drive 24/7 to or from a milk plant or dairy farm, except during inclement weather as defined in department regulations. In order to be allowed to drive even during disaster declarations, the milk trucks would have to be properly licensed with a decal from the state of Pennsylvania Milk Marketing Board and can't be over 95,000 pounds. But y'all and Ward said that they heard from local dairy farmers having to dump milk when bad weather hits because they're not allowed to drive. And it says that while I appreciate the concerns raised about the operations of commercial vehicles during travel restrictions, an exemption for milk hauling is necessary because of the perishable nature of the product, and milking schedules can't be changed to comply with weather or travel restrictions.
Which does make sense.
But it doesn't make sense, because they're saying that they're going to allow them to drive during these state of emergency. They would be able to get permission from their local government to drive 24/7, except during inclement weather. But they're saying that that's when they have to dump most of their milk, because they can't drive during bad weather. I don't get it. Meanwhile, Texas has its own state of emergency, resources to be activated ahead of severe storms. Now, this is serious.
I was going to say real quick on the milk, next thing you know, instead of gas pipelines and methane pipelines and ethanol pipelines and whatever, you're going to have milk pipelines.
Lightning strikes milk pipeline explosion. But Texas is under its own state of emergency, resources to be activated ahead of severe storms. Now, this is serious. Now, this was just the other day. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has directed the Texas Division of Emergency Management, TDEM, to activate state emergency response resources as severe storms move across the state beginning Wednesday. Okay. Governor Abbott has also directed TDEM to increase the readiness level of State Operations Center, SOC, to level 2, escalated response to support any requests for assistance from local officials. The National Weather Service is forecasting baseball-sized hail, approximately 3 inches, wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour or greater, and the threat of tornadoes reaching EF2 strength or greater across the large portions of north, central, and east Texas.
I've always wondered how they can predict the size of hail unless they're making the hail. Like, it's always been weird to me. Like, how do you know before the storm has even gotten anywhere, before it's fully formed, how do you know what's going to happen unless you are helping it happen?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question, but I don't even think you understand how serious this is and the direction that it's going, or at least that I'm going to take it.
Okay, I'm ready. Go.
Based on what we just read from this KXAN news blog post, news article, Texas is under a state of emergency for bad weather, hail, tornadoes, wind gusts. The list goes on and on. There's been a $1 billion increase in hail claims costs nationwide. $1 billion increase. $1 billion. Texas ranks second for most claims.
Texas is also one of the biggest states. That makes perfect sense also.
State Farm released that the company's annual claims paid to help customers recover from hail damages nationwide. This number increased more than $1 billion from 2021 to 2022. So Texas is the second most ranked state for claims, and State Farm has released that the company's paid out over $1 billion more in just 1 year.
So what happens? Because it's not like
No. What do you mean? What happens?
it's not like the insurance company can just say we're not going to insure you for hail anymore, because then everybody's going to leave Texas.
I'm glad you asked that and said that. So now I'm going to share this with you from Forbes Advisor. Why is homeowners insurance in Florida such a disaster? Bear with me.
All right.
Texas, Florida,
Both of the Gulf.
just hang on one second, okay? This is the part of the video where it says, people say, Kevin, just hurry and spit it out. Get to the point. I can't do that, because if I don't go through this, you'll never understand. In 2007, the Florida governor, Charlie Crist, placed a note in the historic Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, where people would typically go to offer up prayers. His note read, "Dear God, please protect our Florida from storms and other difficulties." Have you heard this before?
Mm-mm.
No other state has suffered more from storms and other difficulties. Florida is constantly in Mother Nature's crosshairs, which I'm sure Texas is as well.
Yeah.
When we analyze what has been shared by State Farm as far as hail damage, and there's state of emergency announcements, these storms seem to have a preference for the Florida Peninsula dating back to the Great Miami Hurricane of 1926, even before the World Meteorology Organization began to name them. So they were just hurricanes. They didn't get names. Now, more than 3/4 of its 21.5 million residents live in areas near the two coastlines. 6 of the top 15 metropolitan areas at risk for storm surge in the U.S. include Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa, Bradenton, Fort Myers, and Naples. Mm-hmm. They're all located in the eye of storm surge, wind-driven, water strong enough to drive homes right off their foundations, which rates potential property damage nationwide. After the massive losses from the 2004 and 2005 hurricanes, insurance companies such as State Farm, the nation's largest home insurer, notified Florida officials it was scaling back operations and would stop offering property insurance to residents. Other major insurers followed suit. So you're like, well, what happens? Mm-hmm. Well, if we can, again, look at history and use history as an indication of what may possibly repeat itself moving forward in the future, State Farm already coming out saying that they've incurred an extra $1 billion of loss in 1 year from hail damage, with Texas ranking second. Who's first? Regardless, we have to realize that odds are State Farm will probably see, or at least Texas may see, State Farm scaling back operations and no longer offering property insurance for residents.
So here's my question. When you take out a mortgage, you have to have property insurance, or else they won't give you a mortgage. So is this all going to work hand in hand to where you can no longer buy a house, you can only rent?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. Hold on to that one. So it says here that we have fewer and costlier insurance options for Floridians. The key here, folks, is that we should just remove Floridians, because ultimately this is going to be a nationwide situation, nationwide problem, nationwide state of emergency, really, when you think about it, because these companies like State Farm, their balance sheets, their profit and loss, their revenues, their income is as a company, not per state. So if as a company, 2 or 3 states produce enough loss to make them not profitable, it'll affect the others, all of the others, because they will then have to pay increased premiums to subsidize the others that are draining the accounts. So it says that this left Florida homeowners with few options, with the exception of the state-run insurer as last resort. So there's the somewhat of an answer to your question, that you end up with a state-run insurer of last resort. Florida has Citizens Property Insurance, but there's also there's a contingent of small startups, mostly backed by private capital, that are potentially getting into the insurance market.
Okay.
We already know that Citizens Property doesn't have the assets to cover all the claims of their policyholders if we were to be hit with catastrophe. Now, some of these startups are also now in danger of losing their credit ratings because they don't have the funds. They don't have the liquid assets. There is a liquidity crisis within the insurance some of these insurance companies. Also, we need to pay attention to what banks do these new small startups bank with. Because granted, it is private capital, but if they then start running to the banks to pull out this private capital, we could have another Silicon Valley Bank situation. We had it with tech startups. We could potentially have it with insurance company startups. So this is, in my opinion, very serious, because this is literally history repeating itself. I don't know how much clearer I can make that.
Yeah.
So, while also potentially losing their credit ratings, they are shrugging off policyholders. So that means they may just cancel you, okay? And if they're lucky, the policyholders that potentially get wiped out could be taken over by a more robust competitor, if they're lucky. I don't really see that being a super viable case in Florida, because why would you want to get in such a high risk market today? Very, very little upside. Their answer, raise homeowners insurance premiums by around 12 to nearly 40% during the coming year.
So we won't drop you, but we're going to raise it to the point where you can't afford it.
There's bad news and there's bad news. The bad news is we're going to drop you, or we're going to raise your premium by 40%.
And what happens when they raise your premium by 40% for 1 year and then the next year still drop you after you've paid all that money into it? They don't give you your money back.
You're absolutely right. So if they raise you 40%
to make up their back page that they lost money on, once they become flush, then they go, nope, we're done.
They may, or in that process, odds are they would experience extreme catastrophic loss. They would pay those out and they would go bankrupt. They would lose their credit rating. They would go bankrupt, and you would be out. The other bad news would be you pay 40%, but we need to realize history repeats itself. So you're going to pay 40% more this year. So let's just say, for easy math, that your homeowner's insurance policy is, how much do you think per year?
Per year, let's say $6,000.
For Florida, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Florida, for sure. So $6,000 a year, and they wanted to increase it by 40%. So we'll multiply that by 1.4. That means that your insurance policy would then jump to $8,400. Okay? Let's just say they do it again the following year. Multiply by 1.4. Now you're at $11,760. In almost 2 years, you've almost doubled your premium costs for your homeowner's insurance. Maybe they don't drop you. But we also know that in Florida, they're forcing homeowners to pay exorbitant costs to replace expensive roofs, HVAC systems, water heaters, ahead of schedule, to maintain insurance, to be legal with your lender, feel protected of some sort, but you have now paid the price yourself to replace what you were paying insurance to cover you on in case there was a problem. Headline in the South Florida Sun Sentinel newspaper summed it up. Insurance companies set to squeeze even more out of us this storm season. So
This should be fun.
it's a warning. It's a heads up. There are other Florida difficulties, and these include state regulators saying that they're upside down laws that allow contractors and lawyers to gouge insurers for triple what insurance claims are actually worth in some areas, which have created a legal sinkhole. I don't know if this is really the fault of the contractors or the lawyers, but you got to think any claim, think about it. If you had a claim from 2018, 2019, early 2020, because of the supply chain troubles and issues that we faced, rapid price escalations, force majeure, and now high inflation and higher interest rates on top of it, those claims have to be, they have to then, I'm trying to remember the word that they use. So the claims, they get it's like an adjustment. It's, man, I can't remember that word, but ultimately after they write the claim and they get to going, then the contractor's going to say, hey, look, COVID came through, lumber costs more, labor costs more, everything costs more. You're going to have to pay more. So I don't really think it's the contractors and the lawyers gouging them, but that situation does not help because there's no way for them to recoup that money quick enough because the policies that were paid in were from years before. And these increases were so drastic. I mean, it is what it is.
That's also why now you have so many homes just sitting on the market, especially in Florida, in the beachy areas, if you will, because it's like maybe you can afford a home, but you can't afford everything that goes with it. Or, oh, you can get this house, but you can't get insurance. Well, what's the point? Like, I'm not going to do that either. You're going to have these like wasteland neighborhoods where houses just sit and nobody lives in them. So what happens to those areas? I mean, that's entire economies that are going to get basically shot in the foot all because of insurance.
You know, maybe BlackRock comes in and buys them all up.
And does what? Rents them out to people.
Yeah.
Which is what I was saying. It's going to turn from you can own your own home to you can rent this home. But then, same thing, if something happens, will they cover it? I mean, you might not have to be paying for it, but will they cover it?
That's that whole kicking the can down the road situation. I really wish I could remember the name of that word when you get your insurance company to pay more over the claim.
I don't think I've ever known the word, so I can't help you there.
Well, I used it on that job, that little job in Atlanta. I can't remember that old man, that crazy old man.
I know the roofing thing. I don't remember what it's called, though. I didn't know it had a name, but I know what you're talking about.
It's like a modification or something. I cannot remember that damn word. I'll remember it as soon as we're done recording. So anyway, what we have here is a threat that is potentially likely to swamp them even during the years that there are no storms. And that's because, let's look at here. Hurricane Irma came through in 2017, followed by Michael the next year. And between the two of them, $30 billion in damage. Okay.
That's a lot of money.
And due to the insurance policy rules, this allows Florida home policyholders up to 3 years to make a claim. So it took more than a year for the insurers to catch up to the loss creep that they're getting hit with now. They had 3 years. So the insurance companies could be getting hit or they have this, statute of limitations, basically. And the longer the policyholder waits to file the claim, the more expensive the claim is because prices just keep going up.
I wonder how much profit State Farm has. Like, are they paying out their shareholders?
Are you reading this?
No, I can't. I can't see that far. I can barely see the other side of the couch. But it's like these people, these companies that are raising prices and doing all this. Like gas prices went through the roof during C-19, and that was when these companies made their highest profits. It's like, is it really that imperative, or you just want to have a extra ton of money to give your stockholders, shareholders, whatever?
Well, it all depends on how they move the numbers around. So, if they take their profit first, if they make their investments, their capital expenditures, then from there become have a loss. It paints a different picture. But the word that I was trying to search for was supplement.
Oh.
So the insurance company has to supplement based on current market conditions, invoices, receipts. They typically write their claims using Xactimate, which has extremely outdated data already to get the ball rolling. But then they have to supplement based on today's prices, especially in these force majeure situations like Gulf Coastal Pipeline declared yesterday after their lightning explosion.
Lightning, sure. Keep
Yeah,
going.
people don't think it's really lightning. But it says that Florida homeowners insurance rate increase filings with the state's insurance department started pouring in last fall, and regulators couldn't deny them. Florida insurers saw a profit of almost $800 million in 2014, dwindle to a net loss of $340 million in 2019. So what do you think their loss is in 2022, 2023?
Probably a lot more.
So then non-renewal notices for Florida home insurance policies most at risk started to arrive in people's mailboxes and their email. Many insurance agents with clients whose coverage was terminated scrambled to find substitutes, but Florida property owners with 300,000 to 999,000 in coverage pay an average of 2,350 compared to the national average of 1,252 for the same amount of insurance, according to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. So when I said 6,000, I was talking about our area,
Yeah.
closer to the water, to the coast. So, but Florida, so you got to think about it. Florida, let's just say not close to the coast, 300 to under 400 is going to pay 2,350. But here, I'm saying 6,000 because we're closer to the water and we don't have anything over here under 400. So we're looking at 5-6 closer to the water, which is how I came up with 6,000 being a much more. I agree with your $6,000 homeowner insurance premium annual cost. It's also important to know that most homeowners insurance policies do not include flood insurance. Do not include flood insurance. So flood insurance can easily add another $1,500 to the bill.
Remember in Georgia, we had a house with 5 acres on a small little lake, and we still had to make sure we weren't in a floodplain from that small little lake, because if we had been, it would have been like ridiculously expensive.
Yes, and that was interesting because that was the only one that they actually sent an agent out to walk the property to assess the hazards of the property. And they were like, hey, they said, do you own any boats? Do you own any four-wheelers? Like, it was interesting how they did that.
Like, if there was a flood that you could get out easy kind of thing?
I think that they were looking at, like, on this land, you have acreage. Are you running four-wheelers? That's a higher risk of damage. It's a higher risk of casualty.
True.
And they want to know what they're getting into. More so than they ever have in the past. You know, getting this quote in 15 minutes on an app, they're going to change that. And some homeowners may not be able to purchase insurance at all except from the state, for which the state's back program doesn't have enough money to cover the claims. Is it sinking in? So in Orlando, if a house, get this, in Orlando, if a house predates 2010 and is worth less than $300,000, no company is going to write insurance for you. 2010 and under 300,000, no one will give you insurance. That means you have to be self-insured.
How does this work for these condos that are built in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s?
Maybe so the I think the caveat there is I believe the condo itself gets insured, which then rolls into your HOA.
Okay.
So then it would exceed the 300,000.
Okay, that makes sense.
So Florida's current and unconventional insurance structure is based on reinsurance, which protects insurers from major catastrophe losses like hurricanes. Its property insurers, many of which came into existence after the 2004-2005 calamities, don't possess a lot of capital to pay claims the way major insurers that have left or trimmed down coverage can. So that just means that most people in Florida with insurance are at risk of their insurer not having the money, the funds, the resources, the capital to pay the claim.
This sounds like Social Security. You put in Social Security, but then by the time you need it, there's none there, and you're like, but where did the money go?
I swear you're jumping ahead of my slides. Instead, these insurers rely on private capital like hedge funds that put up billions of dollars, gambling that hurricanes won't happen so often that they'll lose money. They put up billions of dollars hoping that hurricanes don't happen. They're gambling that hurricanes won't happen so often that they'll lose money. That's their plan. That's their plan.
Sounds like a...
But if they do happen, they'll raise their rates. And reinsurers in Florida are predicting they'll be raising their rates 25 to 45% according to Artemis. Florida home insurance companies will need to pass that increase along to homeowners in order to get their reinsurance coverage. But you got to think, all right, if insurance companies are raising the rates on homeowners to insure their properties, then the homeowners then have to find a way to make more money to pay these, which just then means that they're either going to make more money in whatever business investing strategy that they have, and or they're going to spend less money, which ultimately is going to put a huge strain on our overall economy.
I was just thinking also, think of how many times with insurance, you've said to yourself, it is so much more beneficial for me to just pay out of pocket to fix this than it is to pay my deductible, have them fix it, and then raise my rates afterwards. I wonder how many homeowners are going to be in the same thing. They're like, well, I have to have this insurance in order to get this mortgage for this house. But if I use my deductible and they do anything, they're going to drop me afterwards, or they're going to double my premium afterwards. And it's cheaper to just figure out how to come out of pocket this one time and hope I don't need to again. So then they've
Hope
got
is not a plan. Hope is not a plan.
They've got your money from the premium, and you're still spending money on your own. So it's like a lose-lose for the homeowner, no matter what.
It is. And it says that hurricanes are only one calamity, and obviously now we have to include tornadoes as well after what we witnessed on the news in Central Florida and Orlando just the other day. During the years when there weren't any, insurers still suffered from a tsunami of lawsuits. So it's just one thing after another. And Forbes Advisor says that Florida home insurance policy holder almost always pays, which is exactly what you just described. And we can see here, or at least I can see here, you guys can't see it. Largest homeowners insurance companies in Florida. Number one is Universal Insurance Holdings. Can you guess who number two is?
BlackRock.
State Farm.
Okay.
State Farm is number two.
BlackRock will be in here sooner or later.
The largest homeowners insurance company in Florida. State Farm is number two. So State Farm is getting hit hard in Texas with hail. They're number two in Florida for policies. Also, another state getting hit hard. They're already stating that they are looking to exit these markets, raise prices, terminate coverage. State Farm provides insurance and financial service products across over 91 million policies and accounts.
You can tell me 91 million policies, and at the rates that you're charging, you can't figure out how to cover the one little location that ends up with a flood?
That's the key. That's the key. They will. And ultimately, of these 91 million policies and growing, those who do not live in these high claim, these risk heavy states like Texas, Florida, coastal states, coastal regions, they're gonna subsidize everyone else's insurance to make up that gap for State Farm and others. That's what's gonna happen. So somebody left a comment on a video the other day that says, "So do you still plan to buy a house in Florida?"
Well, I don't know. That's why we're still in the apartment, because it's right now, buying a house right now does not make any financial sense because of the prices of the house, because of the interest rates, because of the insurance issues that we could be facing. And because we haven't been here a full year to go through a hurricane style season to see what it's actually like to experience all of it. It's not, I don't know. I feel like we're doing the right thing by not rushing into buying a home just to say, oh, look, we own a home.
Short answer, come check us out. Find out more on my website. But ultimately, as I said in the beginning, this is a very fluid situation. And the last thing that I want to do is incur unnecessary risk. We are literally at a point now where if we had to, we can literally just say we're out of here, you know? And with all the question marks that are floating around, with all signs pointing to high costs, high problems, high risk, I'm A-okay with where we are right now and what we're doing.
Ditto.
Meanwhile, we got tons of updates and news coming out of Sudan. U.S. begins overland evacuation of American civilians from Sudan. U.K. finds itself at back of the queue in Sudan evacuation. Sudan crisis, Turkish evacuation plane fired on. That's crazy. U.S. government begins land evacuation of American civilians in Sudan. Britain to end Sudan evacuation flights. The list goes on, but Sudan conflict, get this, I need you on this one, threatens supply of key soft drink ingredients, okay? So, oh my God.
Oh, soft drink.
Yeah. But in my opinion, this is just the beginning of the narrative push, okay? This is just the beginning of the narrative push. Now, we saw this happen last year.
Fertilizer.
We saw this happen last year, okay? And here we go again. History repeating itself, folks. I'm not making this stuff up. Sudan's eruption in the conflict had left international consumer goods market racing to shore up supplies of gum arabic. About 70% of the world's supply of gum arabic, for which there are few substitutes, comes from the acacia trees in the Sahel region that runs through Africa's third largest country, which is being torn apart by fighting between the army and a paramilitary force. Now, listen to this. Wary of Sudan's persistent insecurity, companies dependent on the products such as Coca-Cola and PepsiCo have long stockpiled supplies, some keeping between 3 to 6 months worth of to avoid being caught short, according to experts and exporters and industry sources. So Coca-Cola and PepsiCo are going to be the big names here, preparing for this potential shortage of gum arabic, only to then find out how many other products include gum arabic and other derivatives of gum arabic that ultimately are going to lead to, in my opinion, higher prices, inflation, and job loss.
I agree. And then just more profit share for Coca-Cola and Pepsi, because they will be able to then take over for the people who don't have the products.
If this gets big, I think it'll be overblown. Whereas we can look today and look back on last year and see just how bad it was by having a reduction of fertilizer and and oils and so like how bad is it today?
Well, here's my question. With all the technology that we have and all this genetically modified crap that we have going on, you're going to tell me that at this point in time, the United States can't figure out how to grow their own gum Arabic so that we don't have to pull it from Sudan, so that we don't have to do these other things? I mean,
I don't want to get too far off track here, but it's like, could we not figure it out? Probably, sure. Could we not figure out how to manufacture our own EV car batteries? Yeah. But we would rather allow these Chinese and Korean companies to come in, take our land through eminent domain, and let them do it.
Yeah.
Instead of us doing it ourselves, as we are capable of doing it, which is why they want to do it here, but we don't. We let foreign corporations and entities come in and take over.
I have more on that in one of my videos coming up.
So what is Joe going to do now? As the House just passed a $4.5 trillion GOP debt limit plan, but most importantly, 4 cuts that could hit your wallet. After having already heard that Biden threatens to veto the House plan before he even saw it. So ultimately, we're going to experience pain. Okay? Mm-hmm. The bill's impact on Social Security is a matter of fierce debate. It's like you're jumping ahead of my slides. And it says here, will result in a 23% reduction in spending for all federal programs. That would be a huge hit for the Social Security Administration, the SSA, which already is chronically underfunded. Chronically underfunded. So what happens? It would exacerbate glaring customer service problems at the SSA. So if you're trying to get your benefits, or if you're trying to figure out what's going on with your benefits or anything like that, any problems, any hiccups, there will be cuts. It will force the SSA, the Social Security Administration, to close field offices that people need, reduce hours, lay off thousands of workers. So not just those relying on the benefits, those relying on the jobs. You would think that working for the government would be a recession-proof industry, but not so much. This will make it far harder for Americans to claim the benefits that they've earned. Is that by design? Mm-hmm. A delay in processing benefits and applications could hit the wallets of Social Security recipients who need the money sooner rather than later. Additionally, we got student loan forgiveness, food stamp benefits, tax refunds, all added to the list. The House bill would immediately eliminate Biden's student loan forgiveness plan, which means millions of borrowers who look forward to debt relief won't get it. The GOP plan would raise the age limit to 56 from 50 on work requirements to receive food purchasing assistance from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and it would rescind funding in regards to tax refunds, the IRS. I don't like it. I don't like any of it. But I think it's important that we cover it, we discuss it, we have these conversations, and also analyze what has happened in the past. What are they saying now? What do we think is likely to happen in the future, and how do we prepare for it moving forward?
Yeah.
With the signs pointing to increased pain, probably more announcements, more governors announcing state of emergencies, higher prices, inflation, insurance woes, job loss, layoffs, terminations, further conflict around the world that will then even suck out more of U.S. resources to fund these battles and these conflicts. How do we end on a high note?
You end on a high note. Well, the fact that more people are opening their eyes to the things that are going on and are paying attention means that hopefully there will be more changes in your local, your state government that will be for the people as opposed to for the profit.
That is good. That's going to require us to step up, speak up, put our foot down, and the people opening their eyes and beginning to realize what's happening, and not necessarily accept it, but accept that it's happening, understand it, and try to figure out ways around it mitigate it, prepare for it, stock up, stockpile, prep before SHTF really happens, like really, really happens. More of those folks are coming around. And so that's why I am building out this complete catalog, library, network of information and ways of communication and contact. So we will end on a high note. Come check us out. Instagram, all my links are on Instagram. Check out my website, kevin247.news, and we will see you guys on the next one.
Bye.